Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, the 21st of May. Making this the news for May 20th, Tuesday, May 20th, day 1181 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5, coming to you live from this major European capital currently under siege. I see the peeps are coming in. There's It's a New Dawn. Hey, PH. Hey, Hobo. Hey, Cody. Hey, Bernard. Hey, Holly. Hey, Di. Hey, Scully. Good morning, Down Under. At least you and I are on the same day. Most of these other folks are behind. Hey, Bakhmut. Well, that's because we live on a round planet, right? Hey, Paul Smith. How's everybody doing? Thanks. It's a New Dawn. I appreciate that. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hey, Michael Kistner. Hey, Flip. How you living, brother? Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Andy. How's everybody doing tonight? Heroim Slava, first wave. Hey, Poppy Josh. Poppy Josh, I agree with you. I really do. I know it's tough. I know nobody wants to send their sons to die in Ukraine, but Europe has to face a reality, a hard reality. There are Iranian and North Korean troops fighting alongside the Russians on European soil. Threatening, right now they're in the middle of creating a refugee crisis internally here in Ukraine. The pressure on Sumy has mounted. Local authorities are now force evacuating 54,000 people from Sumy, creating a new internal refugee crisis. And very much pinning the Ukrainian troops there in Sumy because they are facing an imminent invasion. Forget about a ceasefire. Forget about Putin wanting peace. Putin is preparing his summer offensive, and it appears that it is going to begin in Sumy. That's where, if they can ever get the Ukrainians in Kursk and Belgorod dislodged, we can expect to see the Russians open a new front. And it may not be that long, given the way that they are currently evacuating that area. Hey, Steve with a V, how you doing tonight? Hey, G2. Howgley, that's a new name for me. Howgley, how you doing? Just real quick before we get started here, the sponsor for tonight's live is Beatrice Sella, Cynthia and Tony. Thank you guys. Longtime supporters of this channel. And tomorrow we have a new guy, Joshua Lee, who is one of a group now of people who have stepped up to sponsor a live. And it is deeply appreciated, everybody. Norwegian. Oh, like the island? No, that's Hugh Glow, sorry. Norwegian. The Norwegians are great, man. Will Putin invade Belarus? Putin doesn't have to invade Belarus. Putin is in control of Belarus. Make no mistake. He has kept them weak. They have an army of less than 60,000. They have railroad crossings, bridges, international crossings. They are, in fact, he considers them and speaks of them as what he calls part of the Union State. So essentially separate nations under a single administrative umbrella. And very much that is how the Lukashenko government works, right? Remember, Belarus was completely complicit in this war beginning. And that's one of the things, that's really what I want to talk about tonight a little bit. If anybody has any specific questions about current happenings, let's get them out of the way now. and I'll address any questions that anybody has to the best of my ability. And then I want to talk about the root causes. I want to talk about the root causes. Poppy Josh, where has the sanctions got us to date? I can sense the frustration in that question. And it's not an unfair attitude to have, Poppy Josh, because the sanctions have been extraordinarily ineffective in some areas, but they have been extraordinarily effective in others. And it is important. So first of all, it is frustrating, right, to watch the EU pass the 17th sanctions package. Like, what the fuck? Why weren't these things sanctioned in the past? Well, if you look at the last sanctions package, what was sanctioned in it were the Shadow Fleet vessels that did not exist at the beginning of this war, and bodies and entities that were found to be guilty of sanctions avoidance. So those companies that through third parties or shell corporations have been managing to avoid the sanctions and get things like dual-use chipsets into Russia. Now, here's the thing, though, Poppy Josh. Just the act of that, just the act of getting those... Now, here's the thing, though, Poppy Josh. Just the act of that, just the act of getting those dual-use parts in means a couple of things. You have to have a shell company. The shell company has to make money. The cost of these things has skyrocketed for the Russians. The other thing is they can't get the right parts. So you want advanced AI chips, but you have to settle for dual-use circuit boards that could just as easily go in a microwave or a refrigerator as into your ICBM. It's not an ideal situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see so many failures of the Russian technology, right? Especially systems like the Pantsers, which are dependent upon imported technologies that the Russians simply do not produce. How many times have we seen Pantsers intercept Russian apartment buildings? Like, their own air defense is doing more damage to the civilian population than anything that Ukraine has sent into Russia. Far more. So there's no comparison. Hey, Tony Takiri, how's everybody doing? Thomas, So Thomas wants to know about the USA Golden Shield missile defense dome. I swear to God, this president, he's all about gold. Gold toilets, gold card citizenship, golden shields, golden showers, whatever it is. If it's golden, this president wants it. That plane of his from the Qataris, gold leaf on everything, right? So the question is about a golden shield, an air defense shield over all of the United States, right? It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Since Reagan, the military-industrial complex has been talking about a Star Wars-style defense shield since Reagan. It is not, by all accounts, everything I understand about this, and admittedly, this is an amateur lay opinion, but from what I understand, it is the reason it's never been done is because Ukraine is one of the largest countries in Europe, right? And it's almost as big as Texas, one U.S. state. A missile defense shield for all of the United States would require so much time, so much investment, so many missiles that it doesn't make sense. We have fighter jets. If there are missiles inbound, we can scramble fighter jets and have them on an intercept course in 7 fucking minutes. So this whole thing is political theatrics, or worse, it's an excuse for graft and grift. You pour a bunch of money into the project and then 10 years later, there's no results. It's political theater for those who there's no results. It's political theater for those who want to appear to be doing something when really you're not doing anything, except maybe grifting out of the government yourself. So if anybody has any better information on the Golden Shield missile defense, I'd be interested to hear it. But to the best of my knowledge, it is one big bugaboo, or what the Americans like to call a boondoggle. A boondoggle, a fraud, a fake. How many Iranian troops are there roughly, do you think? Scully, we don't know. We are aware of only one platoon. So on Mideast War Spectator, the Telegram channel, they published a video that appears to show a group of Iranians in Russian uniforms in the Pokrovsk direction talking about going on an assault. And one of the guys, he can't go because he's been wounded, his foot hurts, and the Russians are trying to push them to go. But there seems to be a communication problem between them. The guys are clearly speaking Persian. Now, Persian is a language that is spoken by about half of the people in Iran, and really only there. There are a handful of tiny little enclaves of Persian-speaking people outside Iran, but they are few and far between. Now, not even in Russia, Mel, right? At least the Russians had the decency to keep the North Koreans on Russian territory. The Iranians are in Ukraine, in the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk, participating in assaults on Pokrovsk. Now, again, we do not know. This is the critical part about the Iranian situation. We do not know if these are members of the Revolutionary Guard that were sent there by Tehran, or if they are just independent mercenaries or citizen soldiers who volunteered to fight for Russia, signed a contract, and they have no official designation by the mullahs in Tehran, which is the exact opposite of the situation with the North Koreans, right? The North Koreans are there representing North Korea. If the first case is true for these Iranians, that they are just guys who signed contracts with Russia, then it's no different than the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, or pardon me, International Legion. The International Legion here in Ukraine has about 20,000 volunteers or so from the United States, England, all over the world. And so that's not uncommon to have international troops in your army. Where the escalatory bit is, are these guys Iranian army sent here by Tehran? If they were, that's a major escalation of this conflict, in my opinion. Now, of course, we've seen, Lisa Lou, the story about the Iranians just broke yesterday. The GoPro video footage was just released on Mideast War Spectator, Telegram channel. Now, look, could that video footage be faked? It could be, but it sure doesn't fucking sound like it. You can hear the artillery in the background. If it's a fake, it's a very good fake. Hey, Dan Ballard. Everybody wish Dan Ballard a happy birthday. He just had his birthday. I agree, June. Surely they can't be IRG. Why not, Michael? Why not? They're usually mercenaries, and they may well be. That may be all it is. Has NATO made a statement lately? NATO's useless. NATO's useless because America isn't in it anymore. Let's be honest. Donald Trump is a foreign agent who has subverted American power in the world. He is on Putin's side. He keeps handing gifts to Putin. He is no friend to Ukraine or indeed to any democratic society. So NATO's pretty much sidelined. The Europeans are no longer acting in concert with NATO as much as they are acting independently. And some are acting independently of the EU because they can't get a consensus in the EU either. Any politicians on the front line? No, unless they're there for a photo op, Chuck. That is the worst when these politicians, and I won't mention any names, but I am aware of a major Ukrainian politician who has gone to the front line, taken pictures of himself with the troops, handing out long johns, socks, boxes of candy, that kind of thing. And then as soon as they're done taking the pictures, he takes it all back. I have heard this story from more than one Ukrainian soldier. He said, I didn't give anything back. I kept it all. They wanted it back, but I didn't give it back to them. It makes me crazy, that kind of bullshit. Michael makes a good point on the subject of the Iranians. With war possibly looming with Israel, would they send their best troops? Again, Michael, we don't even know if they're officially there. And it's a good point to make. One could make the argument that, like the North Koreans, that's exactly who you send, so that you get the institutional learnings of real-time battlefield experience that your men can bring back and impart. Because you're going to be facing Israeli drones, you're going to be facing Israeli missiles. So I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. Nightshade, is that supposed to be Margarita Simonian? Is that who you mean? Unsurprising to me that a Putin mouthpiece would want the Romanian elections nullified. And with good reason, right? Because the Romanian elections demonstrate that democracies don't have to put up with bullshit from Russia. You have proof of Russian interference coming in on behalf of an anti-democratic candidate? Fucking arrest them. Nullify the election, arrest them, and hold the election again. Oh, you're talking about the Romanian opposition. He wants it nullified. Good luck. Good luck. I don't see why, on what grounds. Chuck says, are NATO and the EU falling apart? NATO is having problems. The U.S. pulling back from NATO is very definitely a problem. The EU has a problem, well, maybe two problems, Fico and Orban. And aside from those two guys, the European Union is in lockstep on Ukraine, certainly, and the defense of Ukraine. But we both know that Fico and Orban are in Putin's pocket. And that's a problem. They are consciously working to undermine the institutions of European democracy for their own benefit. And Howley, I agree. I think that that's what has to happen. Right now, look, right now, the United States is not the United States. The United States is Donald Trump. And that's a fucking problem for all of us. And yes, Europe is going to have to figure out how to defend themselves from us, which is an insane thing to have to say. But Trump's administration has already attacked Europe in a trade war. So that's the first volley of hybrid warfare. So no, I don't think anybody can trust Donald Trump's United States. Hey, Brandon. The United States is currently in the hands of a fascist. Yes, it is. And it breaks my heart every day. Trump says he owns the store. Right, exactly. Because he thinks of himself not as the president of a multicultural democracy, but he thinks of himself as the CEO of USA Incorporated. And that is not what a government is. It's not what it's for. It's not what it's supposed to be. It is not what it is. And this was very revealing in his post-Putin phone call tweet, well, truth, whatever, where he mentions the word trade with Russia. He's immoral and transactional in nature. The only thing he's thinking about is how to line his own pockets, how to abuse his position and put as much money and power in the bank for him and his family as he can. The idea of doing business with Russia is so repugnant to me. It is such a failure of any kind of moral character to put the almighty dollar above the peace and sovereignty of the Ukrainian people. It is a crime and a sin. And it is a crime, right? Because of the emoluments clause of the U.S. Constitution. But no one seems able to call Donald Trump on his bullshit and put him in jail where he belongs, regardless of the fact that he's the president of the United States. So what? He's a goddamn convicted felon. Strip him of office and stick him in jail and right this country. The fact that he is able to get away with what he gets away with demonstrates how far the termites have chewed inside the United States, how much support he has from the rank and file Republicans and the many, many bureaucrats inside of DC. They obviously support him. Trump for prison, yay. He did take money from the Arabs, yes he did, to the tune of $4 trillion, I think he was claiming, between the sale of the Boeing jets to a country that Biden refused to sell them to. I forget what else, but he said $4 trillion in business. Do you think Europe actually has the nuts to stand up now? No, I don't. I don't. I mean, if you mean by stand up that they're going to send troops to Ukraine, no, that's not going to happen. The political will to send their sons to Ukraine to die does not exist. Now, will they find the political will to unite and support Ukraine with enough to win is another question. And I think we're going to find out pretty soon whether or not Mers is as good as his word and sends the Taurus. I am grateful to hear that the Abrams are on their way from Australia. Right, there's nobody coming to save you, so Europe's got to do it themselves. EU just introduced another sanctions package, Bobby. It brings the total number of Shadow Fleet vessels sanctioned up to 350, I want to say 359, but 350 something. And additionally, it sanctions 75 businesses in a double dozen countries, all of whom have been guilty of sanctions avoidance, making money reselling to Russia items that are banned or prohibited for sale to Russia. Somebody asked about how have the Chinese been helping the Russians. Huge help to the Russians. China now accounts for 34% of all exports from Russia and 36% of all imports to Russia. So a third of all imports and exports come from or go to China. Huge, right, for the Russian economy. The United States sanctioned a company inside China that was producing drones for Russia. Further, it is believed that Chinese labor has gone to Russia to build drones there, so they can't be accused of sanctions avoidance. They're just providing all of the technology, all of the materials, and the labor to do it. So China is definitely in Russia's corner. They claim neutrality, but the fact that they were at the Victory Day parade says something different. Russell Kennedy, I have to disagree with you. RK News says Republicans are only behind Trump because they're afraid to lose their own power. You're not wrong about toadies like Mike Johnson and Lindsey Graham. You're not wrong. But when I look at the American people that support him, what I see is a lot of racism, a lot of xenophobia, a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear of people who don't look like these Americans. And Trump lets those people be their very worst. And that's why they follow him. He could be Alcatraz's the whole Alcatraz thing is so ridiculous. I mean, it was closed because it was so fucking expensive to run. Look, it's on an island in the San Francisco Bay. Just to get everybody to work or new prisoners to the island or paroled prisoners off, you need fucking boats. I mean, right off the bat, there's a lot of money to be spent in that. It's like the Qatari jet, right? The estimate is that it's going to cost $1 billion and take longer than Trump's term just to bring it up to snuff with the communications and security infrastructure that's embedded in Air Force One. And then the American people don't even get to keep it. It becomes Trump's private property. I mean, can you say bribe? It's a bribe. You will stick it to him the minute he misses a mark. Destroying him will wreck his base. God, laddie, I wish they'd get around to it. EU is doing sanctions, lots of sanctions, but not the bone-crushing sanctions that they promised us. Thanks, Russell. Brandon says they want a world of spheres of influence. It serves China to be behind Russia, as repugnant as it is. I think with the Chinese, it's more than that. The Chinese want to control Russia as a puppet state, and they're doing a hell of a job. Currently, Russia, like I said, is dependent for about a third of all its imports and exports to or from China, right? Can anybody guess what percentage of Russian import exports to China account for China's import-export base? Trump didn't say one word about the 28 lives lost due to no warning of tornadoes. Of course he didn't, Eli. It makes him look bad. Is Alcatraz a bird sanctuary now? It's a New Dawn says 10%. Shrimp Man says low. These are good guesses, right? They seem reasonable. Russia's a big country, right? It's about 2 to 3%. I think it's 2% imports, 3% exports. It's nothing. China could replace its business to Russia without even noticing. But Russia can't replace its business with China without noticing. They're their biggest partner. So, yeah, you wouldn't, except Julian Patel, you forgot about the Siberia 2 or the Siberia 1 pipeline. The Siberia 1 pipeline that pumps oil from Siberia down through Mongolia into southern Manchuria. That pipeline accounts for much of that 3%. Yeah, nobody's importing ladas, right? It's potatoes, oil. I want to say uranium too. I think the Chinese buy a bunch of uranium from the Russians. Coal was a big deal, but the Chinese have abandoned Russian coal makers, completely abandoned them. Now, so the other thing with China is that that Russia is indebted to them, big time. I want to say, I could be wrong on this, but I think it's $300 billion. I think all of the Belt and Road Initiative money that China has loaned out in total is about $600 billion. And if I am not mistaken, about half of it is debt in Russia. And the Russians are on the hook to huge interest payments to the Chinese. Then there's the question of the land that Russia took from China, that China has been eyeing. If there is an economic collapse of the Russian Federation, I feel confident saying that what you're going to see is a bunch of Chinese troops move into all the way up to Siberia by Lake Baikal, where the Chinese have hundreds of billions of dollars invested. And they're going to say to the world, let's be reasonable. This is a time of transition. We need to protect our investments. So we're just going in to help stabilize the situation. And then it seems unlikely the Chinese will ever leave. Vladivostok used to be a Chinese city, you know. It could well be again. So China is like, China and Russia are like the scorpion and the frog trying to cross the pond. And depending on who stabs who in the back first, then we'll know who the scorpion was and who the frog was. Right now, it's looking like China's the scorpion. Who else can manufacture Russian nesting dolls? Man, I used to have the best Russian nesting doll. Do you guys know the film Being John Malkovich? Do you know this movie? Being John Malkovich is a movie about these people who find a portal. And when you crawl through it, you come out inside of John Malkovich. And you get to be John Malkovich for an hour. And the film company that made the movie, I did some consulting work for them. And I was on site for a couple of weeks one time in the 90s. And they gave me a Russian nesting doll of John Malkovich. And then inside him was, I forget who the lead character was in that film. But there was him, and then there was the girlfriend, and then there was the monkey. I mean, it was the whole Inception kind of thing all the way down. It was my favorite Russian nesting doll. Yeah, it was super cool. Super cool. John Cusack, exactly right. Who was the girlfriend Was it that Zoe? She's goofy. She's quirky. Zoe. Maybe it wasn't even her. I forget now. Hey, Jedi. Good call, Little Red. It was John Cusack. Great performance. That is one of the tightest scripts I have ever read in my life. It's magnificent. Yeah, me too. Okay. So, guys, Zoe Deschanel. I think it was her. I think that's who it was, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. Deschanel. So, guys, there is a lot of talk about the root causes of the war. Putin keeps saying things like, we have to address the root causes of the war. Now, the problem here is that for him, the root causes of the war is the Ukro-Nazi regime in Kyiv that committed genocide against the Russian-speaking population of Donetsk for 10 years, right? That's what he claims the root causes of the war are. The problem is, none of that is true. I have spoken to dozens of people from the east part of Ukraine who are native Russian speakers who say that nothing like that ever happened. And in fact, some of the people I know participated in anti-Russian demonstrations in Kharkiv and in Luhansk and in Donetsk before the little green men showed up and started a war. Now, if you don't know who the little green men are, don't feel bad. I didn't learn this history until I came here to Ukraine, where here it is common knowledge. The real root cause of this war, now think about it, it's 2012. It's 2012. Vladimir Putin is making a fortune exporting oil and natural gas through pipelines to Europe, right? Making a fortune, particularly in pipeline gas. 2012, the Ukrainians announce they have found all these new gas reserves around Crimea, in the Sea of Azov, in the Black Sea, and they can get to it cheap. And they already have pipelines that can pipe that gas to Europe. What does Vladimir Putin see? He sees competition. He knows goddamn well the EU would rather buy their gas from Ukraine than from him. But he cannot let go of that income. And so what does he do? He comes... Okay, just for a second, I'm going to pause here for a second. Little Fun Hunter repeats the most common lie that the Russians tell. The idea that NATO promised that it would never expand eastward. This is a lie that has been so commonly debunked. It is not even worth talking about to me. Because when you ask these guys, show me a treaty, show me where that was ever written down as a thing, they can't do it. It's not a real thing. It's like Boris Johnson tanked the negotiations in 2022. Nonsense. This is Putin's revisionist history. So, and we can talk about that in a second as root causes too. In 2012, Ukraine gets all this information about proven gas reserves and sets themselves up as ready to set themselves up as competition to the Russian gas czar and his business. And this is the thing about Putin and Donald Trump and these people. They are zero-sum players. They don't believe in win-win scenarios. For them to win, you must lose. That is the nature of the zero-sum player. And it is an obscene, unnatural position to take. The great animating spirit of human success on this planet, the hallmark genius of our species, is our ability to cooperate, to come up with ideas that feed each other, that keep us all fed. Any person here who ever went to a dinner party and saw the food laid out, and some asshole came in and took 9/10 of the food for themselves, you would all beat the shit out of him and take the food back. But these guys do it on such a scale that it's incomprehensible to the normal person. So Russia sees these gas reserves in 2012 pop up. Putin starts to act immediately. In 2014, there is the invasion of Crimea, sudden, swift, unexpected. The entire peninsula falls to him without a shot being fired, basically. Now remember, the Ukrainians had basically been demilitarized by the Russian puppet regimes that had come before the 2014 Maidan revolution. So there wasn't any way to mount an effective defense. At the same time, Putin starts sending military men, Russian military like Igor Girkin, into the Donbass to start a civil war, a separatist war of succession, where the Luhansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic take up arms against Ukraine and separate themselves and want to join Russia. The entire thing orchestrated by the Kremlin. Lionheart, are you talking to me? Because I'm talking about the events of 2014, not the events of 1994. That's a separate topic, and it really doesn't play into anything that I'm talking about here. I mean, we can go back and discuss the Budapest Memoranda separately. But the fact that, okay, we are looking at history, just not the bit you want to look at. Okay, pal? So, and we can talk about the Budapest Memoranda too, as just another piece of paper that Putin wiped his ass with. So in 2014, Putin seizes Crimea, Putin starts the war in the Donbass, and sets us on the path to the full-scale invasion in 2022. So this war here has nothing to do with protecting Russian speakers from a genocide. This war has nothing to do with Yahtzees in Ukraine. There are no Yahtzees in Ukraine. This is nonsense. The only Nazi, I did meet an actual Nazi during my time here in Ukraine. He was a fucking American who left Ukraine because he was disappointed he couldn't find any other Nazis. That's a true story. Ugh. So when Putin talks about the root causes of the war, all he can do is bring up these lies he's told. And it's all nonsense. Now, to go back the longer history, why should America support Ukraine? Why should the British support Ukraine? Why should Russia not be in Ukraine? Because, as Lion Jerkoff, whatever his name was, said, in 1994, we had the Budapest Memoranda. Ukraine gave up all of its nukes for quote-unquote security assurances, Now, see, everybody says security guarantees. That's not what the document says. You should read the Budapest. It's not long. Everybody should read it who's interested in this. It gives vague security assurances. Now, the thing is, in the English diplomatic language, assurances mean shit. Guarantees that list what the effective actions or responses will be to enemy actions, those are guarantees. Assurances are worthless. And the Ukrainians, I hate to say it, got played, right? Now, if it were me, let me rephrase this. In my opinion, the fact that we gave security assurances means that we should follow through with our word. We should be here on the ground. And it's one of the principal reasons I'm here. I'm not the American government. I'm just an American. And as an American who sees the promises that the American government has made to our allies and to this emergent democracy, attempting to come out from under the shadow of its Soviet past, we should be here for Ukraine. I think it's just that simple. No, Little Red, this administration has no integrity. They are willing to do corrupt deals with the most corrupt people. Trump talks about immigrants being the worst kind of people, and yet he sold 17 gold card citizenships to members of the Colombian drug cartel. The worst kind of thugs. I mean, it's the hypocrisy is startling in its depth and breadth. It is a sin. And what he did at the Russian school, was that the sugar fiasco back in 2000? Was it El Chapo's family? El Chapo's family. And then there's the white South Africans. I mean, this whole green card citizenship or gold card citizenship bullshit flies in the face of everything it means to earn your place as an American. It means that we are just in business to bring in the wealthy and ignore the needy. It's the exact opposite of the words written on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. I lift my lamps, send them the tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside this golden door. All of that becomes cynical nonsense in the hands of this transactional, zero-sum player who has no interest in morality, democracy, or the rule of law, and is just looking to bring in his billionaire. He's looking to wreck the U.S. economy on purpose. Make no mistake. He's doing these things on purpose because we all know what they will do. He is wrecking the U.S. economy on purpose, bringing in all these billionaires from South Africa, from the drug cartels, from the Russian oligarchs, so that he can have a fire sale, the biggest fire sale in history. And these billionaires can buy up the assets of the American people at pennies on the dollar, concentrating wealth in the hands of a few. It is a crime and a sin. And if we don't do something about it soon, he's going to get away with it. Trump is so weak. Trump and Putin, both of them, they're so weak. They are, and like all bullies, they are sadists. They are both weak and sadists at the same time, who respond to only one thing: force. Okay, guys, we got about 9 minutes. Thanks, Bobby. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was terrible, Dawn. I forgot about that. I thought you were talking about the false flag operations where Putin blew up some apartment buildings in Moscow, his own people, as a justification for the Second Chechen War. Okay, I want to thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Cynthia and Tony, Beatrice Sella. If you see her around, thank her, please. I want to welcome Joshua Lee as a new sponsor for tomorrow night. I want to thank Jay and Travis, the moderators. I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group on the Book of Faces. And I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server. I want to thank all the Patreon supporters. I could not do this without you. If you are not a Patreon supporter, consider joining the Patreon. If you don't want to join the Patreon, or if you think you have to pay to do that, you don't have to. There's a free subscription available. Get on the Patreon. And then the other thing is, I have Cynthia sponsored tonight, Joshua sponsored tomorrow. I don't have any other sponsors for Thursday, Friday, or next week yet. So if anybody can see their way clear to sponsoring a live, that would be great. I'm very, very happy to see a bunch of we've had 5 people who never sponsored a live before sponsor lives in the last week. That's a big deal to me, and I'm deeply appreciative. So if anybody can step up and sponsor a live, I sure would appreciate it. Thanks. All right, final thoughts, questions, guys. What's going on? Thanks, Bernard. Thanks, Rob T. You know, Anthony, I don't know that Putin has to have something on Trump. I think they can just be in it together. You know, I honestly, I think they're planning on divvying up the world. You know, you take half of Alaska, I'll take half of Alaska. Or not Alaska, Greenland, sorry. You want Canada? Go ahead, you take Canada, but I'll take Alaska back. Shit like that, I swear to God, the talk coming out of Trump, I don't see why something like that might not be the case in the background. That's why I think that it is so important that Putin and Trump not be allowed to meet alone without interpreters. I really, really hope that the people who handle Trump understand he cannot be left alone with Putin. He is out of his depth. He knows it. He's getting more pushback in the United States than he expected. And he needs new marching orders from the boss. Letting him talk to Putin uninhibited is a real concern. No, I don't have any Ukrainian background. And I was never in Ukraine before the war. Donald Trump does not understand Russian, Michael, but I believe that Putin speaks pretty good English. As I understand it, though, they commonly communicate through interpreters. You know, Brandon, it bothers me so much that Zelensky has to handle Trump. That Trump just will not, like the grapist he is, victim blaming constantly. Yeah, and look at what came out of Helsinki. Look at how he embarrassed us then, remember? Is there anything you advise your fellow Americans to do? You know, Nicola, last week, I swear to God, when I saw they deported that American citizen, that girl, that child with cancer, I mean, it was very difficult for me not to think about packing it all up and going home and just handcuffing myself to the chain link fence outside one of these deportation concentration camps that we have now set up in the United States. If you're in Wichita, Kansas Steve is out there protesting on the street, I think every Monday and Thursday, something like that, 2 days a week. And that's a good start, but we definitely need more. People have to get involved, and the way to get involved is at your local level. At your local level, change has to come from the bottom up. The country has to be galvanized to take action against the evil that is being done to our fellow Americans, especially in the form of illegal deportations and the suspension of due process. These are very disconcerting things. Pray for Russia. You're funny. Please, everybody, pray for Russia and don't do anything else for them. Do not send them money. Do not buy their goods. Do not travel there. You pray for Russia. Everybody pray. Thoughts and prayers for Russia. And then do something for Ukraine. So, Maggie, here's the thing. The Trump and Putin phone calls. It used to be when the American president talked to a foreign head of state, it was always recorded and the American people always got a transcript. Trump is not operating that way. I don't know who else was on the line. I have not seen a transcript. I do not expect one to be published. So everything he does is a deviation from the norm. There was a 30-mile human chain. Interesting. They do need it die. That's right. Pray for Russia. And do something for Ukraine. Make Moscow small again. See, Wolf, that's the thing, right? Trump is constantly exercising extra executive powers he's not supposed to have, and that Congress seems unwilling to hold him accountable for. He's usurping the purse string legislative authority of Congress left, right, and center. He's completely ignoring the checks and balances of our democracy. Well, just send thoughts, Michelle. You don't have to pray. Just thoughts and prayers. But do something for Ukraine. United24.gov.ua. From Aurora to Cicero, Illinois, they made the chain. 31-mile chain of people in protest of the Trump administration, Judy. Judy, I see you're where? In Budapest? You're protesting in Budapest? Well, not everybody can do every day like you do, pal, but everybody can do something. Yeah, Julian, we're far away from that, pal, I'm afraid. Tots and pears. Oh, now I want some potatoes and pears. You will never believe this, but in this country, you know I complain about the pizza a lot because it's generally terrible. But there are some gourmet places. Now, they sell things that they say are pizza. But I'm sorry, if it's dough covered in gorgonzola, chicken, and pears, it may be delicious, but I wouldn't call it pizza. There's a place in town called Il Molino. That's one of their specialty pizzas, pear, gorgonzola, and chicken. And it is excellent. I love it, but I would not call it pizza. He's got the 200 meme coin buyers. Oh my God, that is just such dark money flowing in. It's unbelievable. It's just such obvious grift. Ooh, nice plug for United 24 there. Nice. Okay. Guys, it's just past 1 a.m. here, so I'm going to call it a night. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. If anybody out there can sponsor a live, I've got 2 live spots this week. PayPal's in the description. And then all of next week is available. And if anybody is not a Patreon subscriber, consider joining the Patreon. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day. Sponsorships are I would ask for at least $50 for a unique sponsorship. You are the only sponsor. If you send less than that, when I get a couple people, like if 2 people send 25 each or 20 and 30 or whatever, then I'll do shared sponsorship when I've accumulated, $50. Thanks, Scully. Scully just sponsored. Scully was a first-time sponsor last week, which I loved. Thank you, Scully. Who else? Ted Greenhow out in Calgary, Alberta there. Samso, who you should follow here if you don't follow him. And there was one other too. Ted, Scully, Samso. Then tomorrow is this new guy, Joshua Lee. And I've forgotten somebody. Oh, God, that's so terrible. Hold on. I'll get it. I really do want to praise these folks because these were all people who've sponsored for the first time and really stepped up. And I really appreciate it. I literally could not do this without you guys. Oh, Jax. Jax, of course. Such a jerk. Jax was also a first-time live sponsor, along with my good buddy Jerry O. Okay. Thanks, Scully. Thanks, everybody. Again, if you want to help, if you want to keep the reports coming and you want to help keep me in Ukraine, join the community. Like if I could get 100 people to join the Patreon at $5 a month, I could stop asking for help. Stop asking Cynthia for grocery money, which is so embarrassing. But anyway, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Take care.